Have American Christian schools been plotting together to create an anti-democracy movement in the United States? Okay, that's the hook. And I know you're thinking, no, that couldn't be. They're pro-American. Why would they be involved in something so anti-democratic? Well, current events are actually making me wonder. I myself went to a fundamentalist Christian school, and on this premiere episode of the Bible Madness Resistance, I'm going to address the question, have Christian schools always been anti-democracy? Hi, my name's Dwayne Walker, and I am the producer-director of a movie called Bible Madness, which was made back in the early to mid-90s, and it concerned two fundamentalist Christians going door-to-door witnessing. One of them was very sincere and really wanted to win souls. The other one was being groomed, as it would be, for politics.
After the election, what I really push is the voucher system and more freedom for the churches and God's people. You know where this country's going. Waco, Ruby Ridge, pornography, abortion. You gotta get school boards and city council. They'll take over the country.
And the other guy, who was very serious about his beliefs, thought that the other guy was selling out. And so what the movie was, while they're going on their soul-winning crusade in the swinging singles complex, what was ultimately happening is we were seeing the division between the type of Christian who really does believe in the good things of Christianity, feeding the poor, helping people, and all that nice, wonderful stuff. And then the other side, which is the political side, that could only see Christianity in terms of judgment. We got to take over the country. We've got to bring in judgment. It's interesting. It's like if the good side of Christianity wanted to infiltrate the government or wanted to do good in the government, you would think that they would want to have more programs that would feed the poor. And there are Christians like that. You can see them everywhere, especially here on YouTube, who want to go out and feed the poor and all that. And of course make people so that they're not poor, do whatever it takes to give them an opportunity to raise them up. Whereas you have the other group that are just so hooked on their righteousness and so hooked on their judgment, they just see themselves wanting to judge the people who haven't quite made it there. Oh, you want a handout, you want an easy handout, and just kind of, bashing on people instead of doing anything to kind of raise them up. And so that's what you saw portrayed in my movie. And when I made my movie back around, it was about 1996, I believe, I had people kind of going after the jugular of the movie, because at the time that this movie was made, Bill Clinton was still in office. And Paul Weyrich, who has the reputation of being the architect of the moral majority, said, upon the election of Bill Clinton, we have lost the culture wars. And I had people say, well, this isn't really anything to worry about anymore because the moral majority just doesn't exist anymore. Jerry Falwell at the time had disbanded the moral majority, and fundamentalist Christians were kind of running around with their tail between their legs as far as politics go. Fast forward all of these years later, we find that that's not the case, that they have made great inroads into government, and we're seeing it right now. And in a few short months, as we get into the midterms, we'll see just how serious Americans really care about their freedoms now. And one way that they managed to make so much inroads isn't just because of one strong man, you know who, number 47, as it were. It's not just that. They started small. They started laying the groundwork, going for the school boards, going for the city councils, and then gradually working their way up until they controlled the smaller offices. Just like our current president right now didn't just come into his first term and try to take things over. Of course he did. He didn't succeed at it. But the reason he's succeeding now is because, at least during the first term, he was appointing judges and certain people in high offices who, when he came in for the second time, would easily do his bidding. And we are seeing that happening now in real time. And because of that, I decided to dust things off and bring Bible Madness back into the forefront. And you can see it now on Patreon. And as we go through the series, if you like what you see and you find it beneficial, then please, by all means, you can support this series by either clicking like and subscribe, to very easy things to do, or watch Bible Madness at Patreon. And anyway, getting back to the question that I posited at the beginning of this program, have Christian schools always been so anti-democracy? That comes to the fact that I too went to a Christian school. Of course, my time was back in the late 70s, early 80s. And even back then, whenever someone would say the word democracy, I remember a teacher, a few teachers coming in saying, well, we're not a democracy. But when they said that, I never actually took that to mean that they were anti-democracy. I got the feeling that they were saying it more out of sorrow. That, oh, it's too bad this country is not a democracy, because if this country were a democracy and we actually counted the votes of the majority, you would find that the majority of people are Christians and that we would have a truly Christian government. I got the feeling that they were kind of sad about that. Today, I realize not necessarily. They probably champion more minority rule than they did a majority rule. In fact, today when you see these self-righteous YouTubers on there talking about how the United States is a constitutional republic and not a democracy, you kind of get the idea that they aren't necessarily talking about preserving rights. The whole point of a constitutional republic, which I would totally endorse, is that you don't want to have the majority dominating, because that would squash the rights of the individuals or the minorities. But on the other hand, you don't want the minority viewpoint dominating government, because that would get in the way of the will of most people. So the idea is that we will be a nation of laws, a constitutional republic, so that everybody's freedom would be respected. Well, when I see these self-righteous people on YouTube talking to us like they're like we're 5-year-old kids, saying the United States is not a democracy, I get the feeling that when they talk about how democracy is mob rule, I get the feeling that they're actually trying to denigrate the rights of the majority, that they're trying to trash the rights of the majority of people in favor of a minority of people whom they really want to rule. And when I think back at my time at Trinity Christian Academy in Jacksonville, Florida, back in the late 70s, early 80s, I look at it in a far different way now. One thing that happened, by the way, at Trinity that on the surface may not seem to have anything to do with this discussion was the founder of our school, a man by the name of Bob Gray. At the time, he was engaged in molesting children in our school. And this is something that started way back in the 60s and kept going all the way into the 2000s. And this is documented. You can just Google Dr. Robert C. Gray, Trinity Christian Academy. You'll see the articles. I don't really need to add anything to it. And there's a book, by the way, called The Devil in the Baptist Church by Tim Gilmore that goes into detail about the fundamentalist subculture and the story of Bob Gray and what happened. And how this ties in is when Bob Gray was eventually arrested in the early 2000s, I believe it was 2007, when he was arrested, you had a number of people coming up and just standing up for him. And, it was like the accusations didn't matter. And so, of course, they wanted to paint everybody with a broad brush to make it look like liberals were coming to attack Gray. And suddenly, I got the feeling that if you can get to the place where you can defend a preacher who has molested children because, and this was one of the reasons that they were given, is that they gave for brushing it away, because all the liberals and the humanists, they want us to go down so they can take over the country. They made it very conspiratorial, that the atheists and the humanists just wanted to trash the reputation of all these godly fundamentalist men like Bob Gray and Jack Hyles and Jerry Falwell and all. And so there was that political weaponization. And if you care about Trinity, if you care about America, you're not going to jump on that anti-Gray bandwagon. You had a lot of that going on. And I think that what's happening today is you have a whole demographic of people who have been groomed to accept the corruption of their church. And if you can accept the corruption of their church, especially when it gets to, betraying children of all people, and then covering that up like that's nothing, it's a piece of cake to brush over anything that President number 47 is going to be doing, or anyone in his department, or you have an administration just totally filled with corruption, people who have out Bob Gray, people who have out Bill Clinton, and we're like, they're the same people who just went whole hog into wanting to impeach Bill Clinton because of, Google it if you don't remember. If you don't remember it, you must have been born in the year 2000, and now that's okay, that's fine. But, Google it. And look how self-righteous they were. And now you got people who have compounded the corruption of the Clinton administration. Oh, no, they're willing to let it go. I feel it's because they were groomed by their churches and by their Christian schools to accept corruption. You can accept corruption in your fundamentalist Christian schools. It's easy to accept corruption in the higher walks of government. So we got a lot to talk about in the next few weeks and months leading up to the midterms and probably beyond. I'll respect your time and not come up with 45-minute long sermons or anything like this. I try to keep everything between 10 to 15 minutes. And if you have any questions, any topics you want me to go into, then please by all means put them in the comments. And again, if you want to support this program, the best way, the cheapest way is to subscribe and like. And then also, if you really want to help, go and watch my movie, Bible Madness, on Patreon. All the links are down below in the description box. Thanks for watching, and I'll be seeing you next time.